Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Student Engagement Team being live on the LCC Facebook page. My name is Mike. I'm one of our Student Engagement Coordinators. Tonight's a big night for us. We've had some tremendous guests join us over the past couple of weeks. Tonight we have newly elected President Dr. Steve Robinson will be joining us shortly. And we're going to ask him some questions about being the president at LCC and what that means to him and what that means to the students, and ask him some more lighthearted questions, not directly related to being the president of LCC, but to kind of give us an opportunity to not only get to know him, but to know his background a little bit more, and really understand what drives him and motivates him to be the best leader he can be on campus for us. As you've probably seen on some of our last sessions, we had a tremendous conversation last week with Loretta from our Health and Human Services Division. She gave us a great overview of some of our healthcare career options and programs that we are offering for students. We had a tremendous discussion about financial aid with Jim Owens from our financial aid department. We had a representative from the Learning Commons come in and talk to us about e-learning and what we're doing to support our students in this remote environment. And we have some really, really great sessions planned. So as we continue to do these, please, if you have questions about certain areas of campus or things that you would like to learn more of, or if you're an LCC employee who's watching this and you want to promote your own department, your service, your program, your club, your organization, please get a hold of me. We're happy to make that happen. I can see now that Dr. Robinson is here and in the waiting room. So I'm going to have him join us and we're going to have a nice little conversation. So let's see how this goes. Hi there. Dr. Robinson, good evening.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I love your background.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been trying to show off our beautiful campus that unfortunately not many of us can get to right now, but it is definitely a place to be seen and to see with all the great sculptures and landscaping and other materials we have on campus. So it's definitely something we try to show off. So
yeah, I could walk out the door and show it.
Oh yeah. No, I'd be all about that.
Okay.
So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Again, kind of the whole purpose we've been doing these has been to promote LCC not only to the questionable student, someone who's maybe thinking, what could LCC do for me? Yep. But also our current students who maybe would be surprised to hear that we offer some of the programs and some of the services that we do offer on campus. So just to start again, welcome to campus. Welcome back to campus, I should say. It's been an exciting time for many of us to hear the new president coming in and some new initiatives that we might be looking at and just kind of build up some excitement again on campus. So congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're taking questions on Facebook Live as those come in. We'll either two of my colleagues right now are answering those on the live feed, but we also have some questions that we've kind of put together and gotten in advance. So if you're ready, we'll just start diving in with some questions.
I am ready. I've been answering a lot of questions this last.
Sure. Yes. And we've kind of, I will admit that I've watched some of them and I've tried to pull in some that you maybe haven't answered yet.
Perfect.
So, all right. So one question is, you are the president of Lansing Community College. I am a senior in high school. What does you being the president mean to a student? Like, what is the role of the president in the eyes of the student, or what should it be in the eyes of the student?
Well, I love that question, Mike, because, you know, to a lot of the things that we do at a college, the president might not be the first person that a brand new student would see. They might interact more with their faculty or with their success coach or their advisor. But one of the cool things about being a college president is being able to reconnect with students again. So like now here on Facebook Live, or when we are able to safely do it again on campus, I really look forward to talking to students And when I do hear from students as a college president, I found that they're not shy about giving me their opinions about what
Oh,
they'd
sure.
like to what they'd like to see at the college. And so I would say this to a high school senior: if you have an opportunity to talk to me or any college president where you're going to school, be honest. Give them your real feedback. That person, she or he, will be interested.
Great, great. One thing I have noticed to you is that you're very accessible so far.
Trying to be.
You've got a blog. You're encouraging us to submit questions to you.
Right.
You have a great Instagram feed showcasing some wonderful restaurants and art in the area.
More to come tonight. I haven't had dinner yet, so
Okay.
we're gonna figure that out.
Okay. Well, I did throw a plug to my personal favorite, Crunchies in East Lansing. Shout out to Crunchies.
Love Crunchies.
Yes.
In fact, when I worked maintenance at Michigan State, that was where we went for lunch.
Oh yeah,
It's an old place. It's been there for a long time.
It's the best.
Okay, cool.
So how important is it to you to be accessible to those students, for students to be able to see you out on Twitter or Instagram or something like that, knowing that that's the medium a lot of them are using all day, every day now?
Well, I think you nailed it, particularly during the pandemic. It's really important because I'm not able to, bump into students on campus or pass them in the hallway. And so using social media, doing things like this is a way to connect. The other thing I found is that it's one of the best ways to get really accurate, current, frank information about what's happening at the college. We have so many great, deans and directors and faculty, and they'll tell you what's happening, but the unvarnished, truth really comes from the students. And so that's
Sure.
one of the reasons I really like talking to students.
Sure. So this question just came to me from someone out there in social media world. There's a lot of options for students to go to college.
Correct.
Especially now, not even 24 hours ago, roughly, we found out a major institution and several others are making significant changes in online enrollment. What makes LCC a good choice, especially during a time period like this when there's so much uncertainty? And quite frankly, a lot of the larger universities are saying you should probably stay home.
Right. Well, let's start with what you just said. I think that during the pandemic, even some elite institutions are encouraging students to stay home. They're having their faculty and their staff stay home. So that's one consideration. But let me say a few other things that a community college, and particularly LCC, has to offer. They're great faculty just about everywhere at colleges, but one of the things about community college faculty and LCC faculty in particular is this just laser focus on teaching. And I did this for 15 years. I was a full-time faculty member at a community college for 15 years. If that's your job, that's your passion. It's what you love. Now, if you're a professor at another kind of college, there might be other competing things that you have to focus on, like research or service on committees and things like that. And our faculty do that too, but primarily they're focused on the classroom. They're focused on teaching. And they're here because they really love their subject matter and they're really good at teaching it to their students. So that would be thing number one. Thing number two is, since we were founded, we have been focused on transfer. And so if you're not interested in one of our terminal certificates or degrees, and you really want a bachelor's degree, a community college is a great place to do that, especially LCC. One of the institutions you were just talking about is our great partner down the road, Michigan State University, my alma mater, great place. But we have a program like Envision Green, which is a 2+2 pathway for students to move right from here to East Lansing. And there are other similar programs for other baccalaureate transfer places. And then, I don't always lead with this, Mike, but one important differentiator is affordability. Our tuition is lower, and that in this environment with the economy the way it is, that is something that folks are considering.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been at LCC for about 5.5 years now, but prior I worked at a much larger university
Yep.
and focused a lot on financial aid and the finance area. And a lot of times we would have those difficult conversations with students and say, you can still graduate from here, but it's probably in your best interest to start elsewhere.
Yeah.
Community college, a prime example, because a lot of the research also shows that when you start out a little in the negative in terms of GPA and pass fail, things like that, it's a lot harder to get better than it is to start off good, then go bad, then get better again.
You are
So
so right. And
yeah,
there's tons of research on that, and you know it well. The other research that I'm sure you're aware of is our community college transfer students, the students who start here and transfer to university. They actually graduate at a higher rate than the students who start at a university. They
yeah,
graduate with higher grade point averages, and we build up a lot of momentum. So if you can start at a place, a great community college like LCC, and we really are one of the best community colleges in the country,
absolutely.
you can transfer in with junior status with great momentum.
Absolutely.
Both and it's what I would call a both and solution.
Yeah, and there's definitely a misconception of a lot of lack of involvement in other things.
Right.
Students, they want to go get the full experience, so to speak, elsewhere, and don't realize that we have a great student leadership academy that will advance a student through 2 years of leadership development program that they may not even see until halfway through a junior or a senior year at a 4-year institution, and things like that that really bring to light the value, but also the ability that a community college can provide a student.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And when you think about it, if your goal is baccalaureate transfer, you just put your finger on something really important. You can get involved at a very high level here at LCC in the activities that you mentioned, where at a larger university, you'd be waiting your turn in line for sometimes many semesters or years.
Absolutely.
And then when you transfer, you've got this great resume, whether it's the Leadership Academy or the other clubs and other activities, whether they're in the arts or in the clubs that have to do with majors. It's pretty incredible. So you're right about that.
Great. Another question we had, how would you address an unknown student? And when I say unknown student, I mean someone who kind of has the idea that they want to learn something. Maybe they want a better job. Maybe they want a career change. Maybe they want to be able to provide more for their family, whatever it is. How would you address them in terms of what LCC can provide them? And I know we talked a little bit about that already,
Right.
but what would that conversation be like with someone who maybe just has that little thought, but doesn't really know what to do with it?
I love conversations like that. And I will say, one of the jobs that I never had at a community college was being like a career counselor or a career coach. But I've had conversations like that my whole career. I would do a lot of listening. What are your interests? What are your passions? What are the things that excite you when you have an opportunity? I used to ask my students, if I gave you $50, but you could only spend it on books at the bookstore, what would you come out with? What would you fill your cart with? The subject matter that gets you excited, right? And then we also have tools here at LCC, and there are tools out there on the internet that you can take some, assessments about what kinds of things you might be interested in terms of a career or a field of study. And so I would have, in a conversation like that, do a lot of listening with that student. And then probably after I got a sense of where they were coming from, talk about some of the great professions that we have. So I would be coming at that conversation in two pathways. One is the transfer pathway that we already talked about. There are lots of careers that we don't have terminal degrees for, but we can set people up for success to go into law or medicine or those kinds of things that we don't have degrees on. But we have certificates and degrees in all kinds of health professions and all kinds of technology and computer related professions in the arts. And I would be talking about those great programs. And here at LCC, those programs are really, really great programs.
Absolutely. Thank you. So this one is kind of coming from the non-work angle of
That's
being
fine.
president.
That's
Yep.
why I came home.
Yeah.
I was like, I've done so many of these sitting at my desk, and so I
Yeah.
came.
Yeah. So this is kind of a couple different part question. Obviously, I've seen a lot of music in your posts and your other things. What are some of your most frequent non-working hobbies?
Yep.
And knowing that the answer is a lot to do with music, do you have anything close by that you could jam on for us for a few minutes?
All my instruments are back in Toledo.
Okay. Okay.
I think tomorrow's my 30-day anniversary, and it's
Okay.
been and I've had a lovely, wonderful time. Very exciting, but it's been work, 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 work.
Sure. Sure.
Except for going out to eat here in Lansing. So
Sure.
you from Instagram.
Sure.
But no, the only instruments here in the house are my sons, and they're all saxophones. I don't know how to
Okay.
play them.
Okay. Okay. Um, so knowing that music is such a big influence in your life and clearly your family's life based on what you just said, what role do you see the arts playing as LCC moves forward?
Well,
Future thinking.
I love this question because LCC has incredibly strong arts programming, and you know that, and you probably talk to students about it. The unfortunate thing is I'm coming back to town in a time where there aren't concerts and theater productions and ensembles rehearsing that I can go hang out with right now. But that'll happen again. We'll get back to that. My previous college, I really loved being invited to stuff like that. The end of term recitals and the performances for the ensembles and the fall play and the spring play. And we've got great theater here, great art here. And here's my general thought about that. We're moving into a new kind of economy that will automate a lot of what we do. And we train people in that, right? Out at West Campus, we've got a great, mechatronics, CNC, robotics. We're preparing folks for that automated world that we're going into. We're really not going to be automating the arts in the way that, and there are robots that can write music or make films, but we're still going to be interested in this human expression. And there's a long tradition of that at LCC. And when we get out of the pandemic, I can't wait to sit in the theater and watch productions and sit in and hear ensembles being produced or rehearsed, because we've got great arts faculty here.
Great. I'm a big music fan myself, but I'm more of the concert attendee. I can't play anything.
Okay.
I can make a great playlist and I can go to a lot of great shows.
That's a good skill.
Yeah, but do you have any was there a moment maybe at a concert or listening to a record or a CD or any of that where it thought, yeah, this is it for me. This is going to be a part of my life, and moving forward, it's always going to be a hobby or a passion of mine?
I love that question. I don't know if there was a single moment, because I grew up loving music and listening to music, but I would have described myself exactly the way you did up until age 18. I didn't play a musical instrument until I was a college freshman.
Okay.
It was actually a residence hall advisor who I was trying to learn the bass guitar, and he said, "Hey, we have a new bass professor here. You should meet him." And so, as a complete beginner, my college bass professor took me on, and I ended up minoring in music. And between us, I'm not a great musician. I just have a lot of fun. I participate. I've been in bands. When I lived here in town, I was in a number of bands, and I can hold my own enough to have fun. But I'm not like super talented or anything, but I just love it. And that here in town, I've had so many great musical experiences, either performing. When I was in college, I was in bands. I remember the places where where my bands played. I remember great performances I went to. Some of my favorite records I bought here in town. I'm a vinyl record fanatic, and I still have a lot of my records. And
yeah,
so there've been all kinds of moments like that.
Great, great. Well, my wife has worked in housing for a lot of time, so she'll be thrilled to know that it was an RA who made that connection for you. That's the feel-good story she loves to hear.
It was, no, and that changed my life, really. I mean, I'll say this. So my RA was a great guy, hooked me up with Peter Dominguez, who was the bass professor at MSU. And my weekly bass lessons got me through college.
That's
I
great.
mean, because we know, you know, the research, right? A mentor over multiple semesters is one of these top 5 things that gets folks to be successful in college. So having a mentor, and particularly somebody outside of my discipline who was able to help me, it was great. So music's like incredibly important to me.
Great, great. Well, former President Obama just put out his summer playlist for
He does great
Spotify.
playlists.
So,
Nobody
yes.
makes a playlist like former President
Yeah.
Obama.
Yeah, so if you need some downtime, go throw something together for the LCC community on Spotify. That'd be great.
That's a good idea. I'm gonna credit you with that idea too.
All
We'll
right.
do
I
we'll
like
do
it.
a
I
playlist.
like it. So now another question that has to do with you being the president, but also does not. So not only are you a college president,
Yep.
you're also the parent of an incoming freshman in college. Correct. So
Yep.
how does being a college president and knowing everything you know about how colleges and universities work correlate to being a parent of a student who's out there exploring college options? And what are college visits like when the president of an institution is there with their kid, maybe in a hat and a sweatshirt, just going along as a average Joe, not the president of an institution? So what's that dynamic like of not only working in a college all day, but now going home and having to talk about college and talk about essays and admittance and things like that with your own family?
It's a cool question, and it's not over because so I have a college freshman, but I have a high school senior.
Yeah,
So you get to lather, rinse, repeat, do it all over again.
Yeah.
Well, there are 2 parts to your question that I want to talk about. One is I think the decision about what someone does with post-secondary education is a highly individualized thing. And so I'm a huge proponent of LCC, of community colleges. One thing I had to do with both my kids is take a giant step back and not push my view of higher education onto them and let them sort of decide what they want to be. They've grown up knowing how cool community colleges are.
Sure.
My son did dual enrolled classes at my previous college, and you can bet I'll be pushing summer classes and enrollment on both of them. So there are 2 things I want to say. One is on all these college visits as a higher ed professional, you get really critical of the whole visit and the tour and the admissions materials and all that. You're always looking at it with a critical eye.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's been different about the journey with my son is he has a very specific field of study that I don't know much about. I didn't know much about. I was a music minor, but he's a music performance major.
Oh, great.
So, he's already in an ensemble with kids from out of state. And so the one thing about a music major is we had to do every visit twice. You do the college visit, and then you do the music department visit, and then you have to go back for an audition. And so I learned a lot. And that's my favorite thing to do anyway, is learn. So it's a cool question, but it was different for me. My big challenge was not to push my own, viewpoint.
Yeah, that's great. I live in East Lansing. I'm a mile and a half from campus, and my neighbor has a upcoming senior in high school, and they've been doing a lot of college touring. And all she said is, look, if you want to go to MSU, that's fine, but you need to see what else is out there. Don't just go there because you grew up seeing the games and going to the games and being right down the street and things like that. You really need to get out there and explore and see what else is out there. So that kind of
good advice.
Yes. let's see here. Now, granted, you're in your first 30 days, so this is probably a pretty hectic, kind of fly by the seat of your pants question answer.
Okay.
But what is a day like being the president at LCC? What's a typical day for you like?
Well, that's a great question. And I might give an alternate non-COVID answer because I know what a day in the life of the president is without COVID. Spent a lot of time on WebEx.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but let me frame it for you. So one of the big important things I wanted to do in the first 90 days, and we're a third of the way through it, is make sure that I familiarize myself with and meet as many internal and external stakeholders as possible. In my mind, this session right now is an internal stakeholder session. This is the first conversation you and I have had.
Absolutely.
You're a really important part of our team interfacing with students. We're talking to students right now, the most important people in our entire enterprise. So this counts. This is part of my workday.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but also with external folks, economic development officials, corporate leaders, mayors, members of Congress. That's what I've been doing for 30 days. And we actually have a transition plan where we're being strategic about who I talk to, because it's really important that I get to know these important folks out in the community so that LCC is thought of well, gets the resources it needs through political processes, that we're serving the community. So a lot of time on Zoom. And then the other thing is, you mentioned our beautiful campus. The weather's just been so great. And it is fairly safe to meet outdoors. So I have had, if you know where, I think it maybe even is right behind you in the picture, Guitar Plaza.
Yeah.
Our campus is a great place to have a safe, socially distant meeting. So for example, yesterday, the mayor of Lansing walked over and we had a meeting outdoors with masks on. And that way I got to meet the mayor and the deputy mayor in person rather than on WebEx.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is internally team meetings on WebEx and external folks like the ones I mentioned. That's been my day, and we've packed my days. It's been a very busy but fun 30 days.
Yeah, that's probably the one thing I miss the most is the interaction with my colleagues, right?
Yeah.
My office is over in Gannon.
Yep.
Gannon is a beautiful building with a ton of great art and scenery. And it's always very busy. And that's what I enjoy the most, is seeing the students come and go and seeing, maybe a colleague from an office I haven't seen in a couple weeks and things like that. So once we get back to that whole cycle, hopefully soon, it'll start feeling a lot better to a lot of us in person.
Yeah, and let me react to that for a minute. I want to just thank you and everybody for doing all this work remotely. This is hard. If you work at a college, one of the things you like is social interaction. And it's actually one of the great perks of working at a college is being on a campus. It's not like we work in a little office building. We're in this dynamic area where you might have to go from building to building, and it's really engaging and cool. And I know you're missing that. So am I. And I just want to acknowledge that. Thanks for doing it. We'll get back to where we were.
Yes, absolutely. We do have another question that came in from Facebook, and that is, we'll get to in a little bit talking about some Welcome Week activities and an event called Party with the Prez, which is a yearly tradition on campus. Do you see any outreach events for you to engage in? I mean, I know it's a weird period right now to be thinking about that. But aside from the Party with the Prez that we have coming up, is there any other engagement opportunities that you see out there?
There are. And, for now, for safety reasons, for public health reasons, they have to be remote like this. So I anticipate doing more things like this. I've been a guest on podcasts. We have on the main lcc.edu page, there's a Ask the President web portal where folks can type in questions, and when we keep track of answers, engaging that way. You mentioned my blog, you mentioned social media. One great way to interact with me is Twitter. So my Twitter handle is @LCC President. And there's a lot of cool stuff happening in higher ed Twitter. I really only tweet about two things: cool things that are going on with community colleges and LCC, and great things that are happening in Lansing. And greater Lansing, the slice mid-Michigan area. So if you're into Twitter, you should follow me, and we can connect and have fun that way. And then we're actually talking about ways to do more student engagement like this. And I know we're going to talk about Party with the Prez. We're really excited about that. That's this Friday.
Yes, absolutely. So thinking back to, I think it was early June-ish, the interview process is over. The Board of Trustees has their meeting. You get the phone call, it becomes official. You are the next president of Lansing Community College. What's your first thought of, what's the first thing you got to do when you get back to Lansing, other than go to work?
First? Like work, so not work related.
Yeah, like you're coming back home, quote unquote. Yeah. Is there I got to get to blank?
Yeah, it wasn't close. I had to go to Elderly Instruments.
Oh yeah.
So just about a block from here is one of the best guitar stores on the planet. And I worked there for a number of years.
Great.
So Elderly Instruments, which is on North Washington, there's actually, in this country, there are three main places for really cool vintage instruments. One is on Staten Island in New York, Mandolin Brothers. The other's down in Nashville, Gruen Guitars. And then there's Elderly. And Elderly is an incredible place if you like folk music and guitars and mandolins and banjos and before the internet, when I worked there, it was also the only place you could buy cool music and books for world music, cultural music, traditional music. So I had to get back there. And what's cool about that place is a lot of the people I worked with 30 years ago, they still work there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a very cool place. There was that, and then food. I think my son and I went to LS Teco.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and there's probably a lot different when it comes to food options. True. In your first visit, specifically the East Lansing area is probably tremendously different than what you recall it being.
Very different.
Which is also very exciting. My next question is something that, first let me say, I apologize if you don't like this, what I'm about to show you, but it all revolves around this. Oops.
No, that's okay.
Nope. Yeah. You can see that okay?
I know that picture very well.
Yeah, okay. So in some of my research, I've looked at on Twitter, #RealCollege. And the #RealCollege has focused a lot on food and housing insecurity for college students, specifically community college students, which is a big deal.
It's huge.
And I came across this at some point before I knew you were our next president. This was a while ago. How would you explain to someone what the NCC stigma is, and why is it important?
Great. You know what, you mentioned Real College, so let me quickly say something about that first, because I actually think that conversation is bigger than the stigma conversation. So there's a great researcher named Sarah Goldrick-Robb, who I think if she didn't invent it, she popularized the Real College hashtag as a way to bring awareness to exactly what you said, that we do have major challenges among higher ed students of food insecurity, homelessness, and then it is a kind of a larger effort to sort of inform our country that going to college is not what it looks like in the movies.
Absolutely.
And it's not just for people who already can afford it. And she's been a real advocate, and the Real College movement is super. So I'm glad you mentioned it, and I wanted to say something about it because that's really important. Now, the stigma campaign and that picture you showed
Mhm.
is a chip I've had on my shoulder my entire career. Is that people sometimes look down their nose at community colleges. Most community colleges have some nasty nickname.
Mhm.
I don't repeat those because I just don't want to perpetuate them. But there's a sense that community colleges are less than or not as prestigious. And folks who really understand higher education know that we're very high quality teaching focused institutions.
Mhm.
Um, and if what you wanted to do is move to a cool city where there's all kinds of neat stuff going on and have, affordable classes to take, you couldn't pick a better place than Lansing Community College. I mean, the way that we have changed this part of downtown over the past couple of decades is amazing. So the hashtag is a way for me to kind of amplify positive stories about community colleges. And that picture you showed, one morning in February, I just had enough. And I came up with this idea for a hashtag ENDCC stigma, End Community College Stigma. And my tweet was this, we're proud to be a community college. We're not going to change our name. We're going to change your mind about community colleges. And a lot of the ways that people talk about community colleges doesn't come from their firsthand experience. It comes from
Absolutely.
some joke or some, pejorative thing that somebody said. So I love to get people to come to our institutions and see what we're all about.
Absolutely. And that's one thing myself and my colleagues working with high school counselors and high school students and going to college fairs and college nights and things like that, we often hear a parent will start out with, well, when I went to LCC or when I went to OCC or wherever it might be, not knowing it is tremendously different now. We
Yeah.
have a magnitude of resources and things that, quite frankly, the 4 years on our left and right can't offer,
Right.
and students can greatly benefit from for us. So I'm really excited to see how that campaign can kind of encourage some movement on our campus and really focus in on what we have and not what we don't have, versus some of the larger institutions.
I agree with you. And one of the things that's exciting to be the new president here is so I started that campaign a while ago. And, the fact that I was selected to be the president tells me that this is a college that really gets that idea and is super proud of the fact that it's a community college. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to do this, but there are other community colleges that are downplaying or taking the word community out of their name. That's not
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah.
Indelibly, we're a community college, and we're really proud of that.
Yeah, that's what we're built on, and that's what we're built for.
I mean, would anybody call us Lansing College? It doesn't make any. No, we're Lansing Community. If you ask people about us, we're LCC, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So obviously, COVID, you hear it everywhere, all the time, everywhere. In a few of your engagements, we've heard you talk about how community colleges in general, especially LCC, is uniquely equipped to handle this crisis.
Yes.
And I know a lot of what we've talked about has shown that, but can you elaborate on that? Like, how can we help our community in this time? Like, how can we be a resource for those who maybe got furloughed or got laid off or got let go from a job? What can LCC offer that person?
Mike, there are so many questions that are important, but that might be the question you just asked might be the most important community college question there is. And I love it, and I want to tell you my answer for it. In my kickoff remarks, I said that community colleges were built for this moment, and I really mean that quite literally. The idea for the comprehensive community college was born in the late 40s after World War II. There was this thing called the Truman Commission report. And in the late 40s, we had a big access problem. People could not get the higher education. And what's interesting about that is it took a little while for us to build this network of about 1,100 community colleges. So after we come out of the pandemic, just about every community is in commuting distance from an open admissions college where you don't have to get a super score on the ACT or the SAT. And you can really follow your interest and passion to get started or to restart something. The other thing that makes us really uniquely able to help is that we have such a range of programs. It's not just bachelor's degrees, it's certificates, it's 2-year associate's degrees, it's non-credit training, you know, through BCI and all the things that we do in community and workforce. We can go in and help individual companies retrain employees. You've probably heard me say this, our community colleges are really built for two purposes. One is social mobility for our students and their families, because one of the best ways to improve your family's standard of living is through education and employment. And the other one is economic development. We have to have a place that companies want to come and create jobs, and we're just really well positioned to do that. So the local municipalities, the companies, and the families who maybe need to retrain or do something different are really going to need us, and we have the ability to help. So that I think that's our main job in the midterm.
That's great. Yeah, and that kind of plays in with last week I met with Loretta from our Health and Human Services Department, who's an outreach coordinator, and we talked a lot about certificate programs that students maybe don't understand. They can start a class in August and potentially be working by January, you know, Absolutely. With some of these programs. And it's a great opportunity for those who want to get back on their feet, want to recharge, want to restart in a new field, a new career. And often some of those certificates will get your foot in the door, right? So at a place, you know, maybe a Sparrow, a McLaren, something of that nature, you may start out in a position and then see what else a company can offer you and kind of move yourself through that department, program, etc.
Well, you mentioned Sparrow. That's a great example. My counterpart at Sparrow, the CEO of Sparrow, started his career as a phlebotomist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. and so there are lots of entryways into careers. And he and I had a great meeting and where he talked about how that experience made it really, it's easier for him to walk around in the hospital and kind of have a rapport with everybody who's delivering care, because you know he started in a health profession. And yeah. we have I'm looking out my window at the HHS building. We have incredible health professions here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And some of them start with very short-term certificates.
Absolutely.
That's true in technology as well.
Yep, it's great for someone who just wants to get their feet wet, jump in, get started, and kind of see where that takes them.
Exactly.
Great. We have a couple more get to know you type questions.
I love this. I'm having so much fun. So yeah, let's keep going.
So hopefully this isn't too difficult of a question, but
I'll let you know.
The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
It's tough, but I got you here. And here's a little bit of exam tip for students. You got to go with your gut on it. So it's the Beatles for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. My son's name is Jude. So
that's good.
The answer is made for me as well.
We have two cats. One is Sergeant Pepper and the other is Penny Lane.
Oh.
Now, they came with those names, but we were big Beatles fans.
How about that? Yeah. Are you more of a pizza or a taco guy?
Oh, that's a tough. Again, gut pizza. Although yeah. I think we might be doing tacos tonight.
Yeah. Well, there's great pizza and there's great tacos in this area. What is your favorite memory of being an undergraduate college student?
Gosh, I have so many. Favorite memory of being an undergraduate college student. I think I mentioned it to you. I think it was my weekly bass lessons.
Mm-hmm.
It opened up a new world for me. After a few years, I was good enough to be able to play in a band, and you know, we played at some places that are still around, at Rick's and other places that. And I had a lot of fun. And it was always something up until age 18. I think, well, I could never do that. You know, I could never do that. In just a span of few years, I got good enough to get in a band and have fun. So I think it was studying individually with my bass professor.
That's great. That's great. I always say that those kind of like music and concert memories always stick with you. I take the dogs for a walk. I go for bike rides with my son. We always go by Breslin. And back in 1998, I saw Pearl Jam at the Breslin Center. And I think about it every single time I go by there. You know, those memories last forever. You always go back to those special moments. So that's
I recently went to some concerts with my son of artists that he likes, but they were down in Detroit at venues that I went to when I was his age. And those musical memories, they kind of suture with place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned Breslin, they'll always take you back to that Pearl Jam concert.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I actually grew up in Monroe, Michigan, right north of Owens. So a lot of venues. I've been to Savage Hall for shows. I've been all over the place. And, you know, you think about them. Anytime you go back there, you go back to those memories.
Yep, agreed. The music and smell will take you back really quickly.
Well, it's interesting you said smell, because I'll elaborate that on a minute here. But obviously, your education and your profession have taken you to a lot of different places. Is there any place that ever took you that you thought, what am I doing here? How did I get here? Is there a city or a state where, you know, you made it and you thought, I'm just a college student, or I'm just a college president. What the heck am I doing in this city, this country, this whatever?
What a cool question. Yeah, and I have a very odd, specific answer. Tampere, Finland.
Oh.
Yeah, so when I was a faculty member at Mott Community College and a grad student here in town, I submitted a paper for an international conference in Finland, and it got accepted. So I made the trip, and I took my bicycle, and I actually presented at the conference, and I rode my bicycle across Finland.
Awesome.
And a few times on that trip, I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned smell. I was a participant in a doctoral program at the University of Toledo that led me to Beijing, and I was in China for 3 weeks, and I will never forget the smell of being in China. I'm not saying if it's a good smell or a bad smell. I'm just going to say I always will remember the smell of being there. Obviously, you know, walking the Great Wall, things like that are going to be memories forever, but there's a very distinct scent that comes with certain areas over there that sticks with you.
Yeah, my sister lived in China for a number of years, and she says the same thing. I think some of it comes from, there's a lot of coal burning in China.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. And yeah, and your program at UT has very strong ties to China.
Absolutely. Yep. Hopefully you and I will discuss that more later.
We will.
The last this or that question was asked if you're more of a Pepsi or a Coke person.
You know, I've flipped back and forth. I'm going to cheat. If it's cherry, I love cherry Pepsi.
Okay. All right.
If it's General Coke, I love Coke.
Okay. Great. What I'm going to do now is share my screen and just quickly wrap up with discussing some of the Welcome Week activities that we have planned throughout the next week or so. So let me get here, and we should see. So for those who are watching, you can go to lcc.edu, and in this middle banner area here, this will rotate through, but you can click on the Welcome Week schedule, and you can see we have all these wonderful Welcome Week activities. You can click on the middle area here and kind of get a description of what is happening, as well as having a link to the meeting on the right-hand side. A particular event we're going to highlight here a little bit is Party with the Prez. Now, this has been going on for, I want to say we've done it for 3 years now. This may be the 4th. And it's been a great event right outside the front doors of the Gannon building, using the pavilion space and Guitar Plaza area and all throughout that middle area. And we've had some really great, fun, interactive games. We've had a band in the past. We've had all kinds of food vendors, but it's just a really great opportunity for our students to see that the president of the college is a real person, someone who's going to be walking around campus, someone who might stop them and ask them, you know, what are you going into? What do you like? What are you interested in? Things like that. What are you looking forward to with Party with the Prez the most?
Well, I'm very excited for Friday. So Lane Ingram in my office has been putting together a phenomenal set of activities with a whole team. And, you know, normally, as you mentioned, Mike, this happens in person with a lot of fanfare and a lot of food and a lot of noise. And obviously we can't do that. So Lane and his team are working really hard to make sure that it's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we've got some giveaways, including some big giveaways. I mean, like if you're on the fence about whether you'd come, there are some giveaways in the Party with the Prez that would be worth your time. And it's really cool. There's going to be and Lane has this great personality to kind of be an MC for the event, and so I'm really looking forward to it. And we're going to have fun and try to do the best we can in an online environment to recreate the kind of energy that we usually have in person. And we'll get back there. Party with the Prez will be an in-person event again. There'll be great music, and depending on how it works, maybe depending on what band is there, maybe I'll get to sit in. And
yeah, maybe you can jam for us there.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
I've done it before at another college. Yeah.
Great. So in addition to Party with the Prez, you know, you can see out here, we've got presentations, drop-in Q&As from our student access department. So if we have students who are out there thinking about how can accommodations fit them at the college, introducing some of our health and human service programs, our theater program. The Adult Resource Center is a great place for someone who is maybe looking at what can they get involved in as someone who's not a 17, 18, 19-year-old fresh out of high school coming in here. The photo contest is happening all week where students can submit their photos, post a photo on Instagram with the hashtag LCC Welcome Week, show your study buddy, things like that. We have gift cards happening. There's definitely going to be some scholarship giveaways. So even if a student just comes in and clicks in for a few minutes, they may win a scholarship that can tremendously go a long, long way at a community college. That's what a lot of times I talk to people and they'll say, well, ABC University offered me 10 grand. And I'll say, okay, well, how much is 10 grand going to get you when it costs 50 when 500 here can pay 33% of your tuition?
Exactly,
you know,
right.
So it's, you know, it's a very worthy time for students to be checking into these. Our counseling department, if you're interested in learning about how you can speak with a licensed professional counselor on campus. My team will be hosting these new student hangouts. We're going to have partners from our success team and other areas of campus that are going to join us and just talk about what being a student here is, answer any questions you have, open your eyes to some opportunities on campus, things of that nature. All kinds of different Veterans Affairs here is going to have a drop-in Q&A. So a lot of this you would see in our traditional Welcome Week activities out on the Washington Court Place, where all these departments would have a booth, they'd have a tent, they'd have tables, they'd have information. It's important for us to still provide all of these to students. So all of this is going to take place in the virtual environment here. How fast can you unscramble words? That's going to be an interesting one. And each day, a lot of the activities will repeat themselves. So if you have class on Monday and Wednesday, but you really want to learn about counseling, here we also have them on Thursday. So for everyone out there, please check into as many of these as possible. One thing that matters to most people is money, and we have an opportunity for you to win some money here that can go towards your LCC education, but also learn about a lot of great resources that we have available to you free of charge, let me say, throughout your time here on campus. So, Dr. Robinson, this has been awesome.
Oh, it's been fun, Mike. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you joining us tonight. I'll give you a moment if you have any last words or any say to the community or you know, the staff, the students, the stakeholders, anyone as we wrap up this evening. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Mike, for the opportunity, and thanks for having me here. And if you tuned in to this Facebook Live session, thank you for doing that. I look forward to meeting you in person, whether you're a student, staff here. And I just want to tell you that so many people here at LCC are working to make sure that your experience as a student is a rich and robust one. I want you to stay safe. It's really important that we do what we need to do to get through this public health crisis so we come out the other end healthy and well. And we're gonna come out the other end of this. And when we do, we'll get together, we'll be on campus. But there's so many people here at LCC helping you move toward your goals. And if you haven't made the decision to enroll and be part of our great college, I would really encourage you to do that. This is an exceptional place, and it can put you on your journey to where you want to go. So I really appreciate you spending some time with me. And Mike, thank you for your time. Great questions, fun conversation.
Great.
And I'm really looking forward to the semester.
Yes, as we all are. It's going to be a challenging one, but I think with all the resources we have in place, we're continuously day by day thinking, how can we provide this and how can we make sure that this is accounted for to really make it the best and hopefully provide students almost a better service online in our ability to even, you know, perhaps pre-record something and make sure they get a message versus the constraints of what we would have in person. So I'm looking forward to the fall. If you're somebody out there who's watching this, who's listening to this, reach out to myself, Amanda, Cassie, Blake. We are the engagement team. We are going to be your first contact point to help you get started and get going. We are really excited about this school year, and we will be bringing some really great content to these. So we've got a partner lined up from our technical careers program who will be upcoming in the next couple of weeks. We're going to highlight some specific academic programs, some arts programs, some success coaching, a lot of great resources for people to continue tuning in week by week and really see the vast array of things that LCC can bring them in terms of an education. So thank you so much. It's been great. I know you're probably itching to get some food, as am I.
Yeah,
so go out and enjoy your dinner. And I really look forward to working with you for a long time on campus. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.